find more often than not that even when things should make me sad, I'm still happy. I'm the optimistic to a fault. I'm the guy that's like, it's like the glass is half full, half empty for most part. I'm just like, well, I'm thankful I got a glass. I think that's a good terminology. It's a good mantra you should be thankful for right there. Just be thankful you got a glass. Even if it's empty or full, just be thankful you got the glass. But for me, I've just always wanted to know certain things, and I've always wanted to figure out certain things, and I've always wanted to be the person that says, hey, I can help solve these problems and, go astray. When you're sad, you want to try to figure out how to be happy, and when you're happy, you want to learn even more how to be thankful, but that's not how we work as sheep at times. And as the illustration here in Psalm 119 to 176, the first thing the psalmist writes there, if you look at it, he says in the most gruesome, it's heart-wrenching to find a Christian at this point, though. It says here, I have gone astray like a lost sheep. I have gone astray like a lost sheep. That's a loaded verse just Will's wording right there. I'm not going to preach on one aspect of it, but he says, I've gone astray. And I'm going to share that. I'm going to share about that straying part. But to think that you go astray like a lost sheep. You know what a lost sheep is? Someone that was never part of the fold. So the person that's writing here, he's like, I'm so far gone astray that I don't even feel like I'm part of the flock anymore. That I'm a lost sheep. And you think about salvation, right? And that's not what that's dealing with. But you think about salvation. Once you got saved, the Bible says by grace through faith, when you get saved, you're in, man. You're in the family. You're part of the crew, whatever. You're part of God's flock. But to think that you're so gone astray that you feel like what you once were before, how did you get to that point? What allowed you to get to that point where you've gone so far astray that you don't even feel like you're a part of it anymore? You feel like that the puzzle that you have in your life, you're missing a few pieces. There's nothing worse I can imagine. For me, I don't mind puzzles, but I don't have the patience to just sit there and then find out that pieces are missing. And when you have a household of little boys that like to throw everything in the air, there's nothing the worse. Hudson wants to sit down. Dad, do these puzzles with me. I've given up on it. No, you do your own puzzles. Because on a puzzle of 48, the kid only has 45 pieces. And it kills me. I'm like, you got like the little bear over here and it got no nose because you took the piece out and you lost it. Or you got the 3 corners and then he's missing the corner piece. He's like, like, I hate it. It drives me nuts. Why would you have nothing, gone like that? Or why would you have your pieces gone like that? I don't care for that kind of aspect. But I've gone astray like a lost sheep. To have those things missing like that, where you're not part of it anymore. We know the most obvious one. Turn your Bibles to, just turn your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 5. We know the most obvious reason why someone would go astray. It's not something that's a foreign concept for most people. You and I have been here. In Proverbs chapter 5, look at verse 23. It says here, we'll start in verse 22. Yeah, verse 22 is probably, we'll start there. It says, his own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sin. He shall die without instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. The first thing I want you to know, the reason why sheep go astray, one of the quickest things is sin. Getting themselves into trouble. You see sheep oftentimes in the wilderness, and I've done a lot of sermons on sheep, and that one of the biggest aspects with sheep is they got to be led. And if they're not led, they go astray. And the biggest reason why they want to go astray is because of that curiosity, man. And you know the old expression, right? Curiosity did what? Killed the cat. That's why we all know that cats are bad, right? Dogs are good. That's the proof right there, all right? I don't do well with cats. I had some good friends of mine, mostly Bree. I found out that I don't do well with cats. I'm not one. If you put a cat in, I don't know what it is about the Leclerc's cats. They got like godly cats or something, because I can stick their cats literally to my face like this and I have no problems with those things. But they are the coolest cats I've ever seen. But every other cat, man, if it's within like 5 miles of me, I'm like, like this. My eyes are all swollen. I can't even see. My throat swells up, and I'm like, I need like an EpiPen, man, in my neck or something. Not in the I need it in my neck because I'm like, feel like I'm dying within a certain time frame. Like, I don't do well with cats. They make me just kind of, swell up. Where was I going with the cats? I don't like cats, I guess. So curiosity killed the cat. Christy laughs at me. I don't know. It just goes out there. But the curiosity that killed the cat, right? We see that. It's a weird concept, but I wonder how many cats have been curious enough. That must have been a farm thing. You hear about farm cats all the time. It must came a farmer, that concept, the curiosity to kill the cat. Why? I've heard cat stories from Shaylee. She's about there was barn cats, and they would just walk under the cows and just get crushed. And I'm like they just would die? She's like, yeah, they would just get stepped on. I'm like, that's so, gory. We just kind of, kicked them off to the side. You didn't have, a proper burial? No, that's their fault. They should have been walking there. That's a farmer that made that lineup. I'm telling you, curiosity killed the cat. If I had asked Fred and Arlene or a farmer in here, if I said, well, how many cats have you seen? Or Miss Nancy, how many cats have you seen just get crushed or killed on the farm? They'd probably say, if I only had a penny for every one, right? That curiosity kills the cat. We see it kind of going, astray to do its own thing. I wonder, and you see kittens, they're always all the time, just running around doing their own thing. They're crazy ninjas, man. But they walk around places they shouldn't be. What are you doing under the cow's feet, little kitten? Why are you over there? Don't you know better than I'm just a curious cat. And the next thing you know, boom. And you're like, whoa, what happened? You know how many people I've seen that have gone astray because of curiosity? The folly of them. It's their sin that gets the best of them. That's an easy one. We know that. It's because of sometimes our folly and our sin. There's never, ever any sin or anything that you have a fault-wise. There's nothing that you have in your life that you should be holding on to and not trying to get right with God with. I don't care how minuscule it is. I'm talking about the littlest of things where you might just stretch the truth a little bit. You should get that right with God. You say that's a folly right there. You're flirting around with the cow's foot, man, and you think it's not a simple little thing, but those little bit of lies will eventually stack up. And if you're not watching out, you're going to get stepped on because of a little bit of sin. It'll lead you astray. He says, my folly is what got me in trouble. No matter, I was big on for kids, man, your relationship with your parents. And there's some youngins in here, you better obey those parents. The Bible talks about children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And it talks about how it's with a promise that you may live, all right? I don't know about y'all, but living's pretty cool. It's sometimes overrated. Bills, taxes, I don't really care for those. All right, but for the most part, I like a good, McDonald's fountain Coke every once in a while. It's got some perks, for living. And there's some promise about living when you obey your parents. Now you're like, oh my goodness, God's gonna kill me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you better obey your parents. Your parents are watching it all the time. They're watching. I can't imagine the poor Oliver kids at times. I can't imagine Miss Dawn over there watching Michael, and especially it's got to be Ethan just watching like. What is Ethan going to do to kill himself today? It's like a sitcom, turn on the TV. How can Ethan find ways to hurt himself? And if he doesn't do it at your house, he does it at my house. Plenty of ways. When he first, I've never seen a group of three. Michael wasn't so bad, but Andrea and Ethan, I've never seen children that found more ways to hurt themselves than those two children. They're in running with Felix, who is also just as good at finding ways to hurt himself. Put the trio together, they got the trinity of klutzness. It's just out there. And they find new ways. You will find new ways if you're not careful to hurt yourself. Be mindful that curiosity, it'll get you. If you're not careful, those small little things add up. It's foolishness. I like how he says before that in verse 22. It says, verse 22, it says, he shall be holden with the, what's that word? Cords. Cords in verse 22. It is that's wrapped up. He's bound by that sin. It's not the fact that you think it's a simple little thing. It will wrap you up after some time. You give a little inch, it takes a mile kind of thing. You give the devil a foothold or give your flesh a foothold into your life, it'll take the whole door, man. It'll take the whole house away from you. Be careful of that. It says, in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Again, so we know the first one, that reasons why you might go astray is because of sin. It's because of sin. But it's not always that, though. Look at the second one. Go to Jeremiah chapter 50. Jeremiah chapter 50. Isaiah, Jeremiah. If you went to Lamentations or Ezekiel, you've gone too far. Go back to the left a little bit. Oh, has this one hit me every once in a while? I've seen this, I've done this more times than I care to admit. It says in Jeremiah chapter 50, it says in verse 4, it says, in those days and in that time, saith the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping they shall go and seek the Lord their God. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. So that's great. I would love to be a part of that covenant that's never forgotten, but this is ultimately the problem. It says, my people have been lost sheep. It says, their shepherds. Now, you see that plural S right there? That ain't one. That's not one person that's taking care of it. It says, my shepherds, all right, have caused them to go astray. And I ask you, for those that are shepherds in this room, and just because you assume that you're not the pastor, that kind of doesn't mean that you're scot-free. I've been there, done that, where you lead someone astray. For the husbands in this room, you got that shepherding role between your wife and your children. For some of y'all ladies, you don't got no sweet honey with you, and it's just you that has to kind of lead those children. You're a shepherd in that role. For some of you guys that have ministries, you have that role. I've been going through my this kind of like little book thingy with my Sunday school people for the leaders here. I'm kind of reading a book and doing like these like quizzes and tests like that about things they've learned. And I want to keep on top of them. I want them to know that Sunday school is a big deal. And that's why we've been reading the book, that it's not a simple little, kind of small ministry. It's a big deal. Everything that you do for a ministry for God, it's a big deal. And he says here that the shepherds cause them to go astray. If it's not your sin, sometimes it's the shepherds. But you know what's funny? Is sometimes you guys have subjected yourselves to a shepherd. And you know what that shepherd has done to you? He's led you away. Or she's led you away. They've brought you to places where you're like, I don't remember being in this spot before. My kids are the most without fail. They question my motives on everything. I've permanently ruined the trust cycle with my kids. And especially Hudson, he's the worst. He's the person that's sketched out about everything. I'm the person that I can put a box on the kitchen table. I'm going to do that. Don't tell him that. That's a great idea. I'm going to test the theory. I'm telling you, if I stick a box on my table, without fail, Hudson's going to be watching that box. My kids are curious cats, though. They'll want to know. They got the nosiness, not from my side of the family. All right? I'm not going to say from who. All right? But I will say this. It's not my side of the family. However you want to interpret that is up to anybody here. All right? But they're curious cats, but I'm telling you, they're terrible skeptics. They don't trust a blessed thing. Felix, not so much. Felix is like, what's in the box? Like, he'll rip it open, right? Well, Hudson, man, he'll stare that box down. He'll look at it sideways. He'll kind of, he'd be the person to take a stick to poke the box. And if I told him, son, that's your box right there, he'll ask, what is it? But I say go look into it. I'm telling you, he's not going to look in it. He won't. He'll send Felix, right? Or Ariana will send Felix. One of them will send Felix over first, to which Felix will then be like, oh, it's in the box. That's how they work. But they'll be skeptic of it. They're not so quick to just kind of to jump into things. To lead them is easy in the fact I can tell them to jump, and they will say how high. But you know what at times I've done, though? I made them questioning little ones. I've kind of led them in ways that aren't ideal the way that I planned for it to be. As a shepherd and the roles that you have, they could easily subject themselves to bad authority. I'm thankful that I'm far from perfect, but I try to be a good authority in their lives. We're always telling them, listen, you need to question people's motives, man. This world is terrible. Don't just go find someone and say, if they tell you to do something, don't just instantly do what they say. You figure out, is it what God would want you to do? Is this something that's pleasing to Him? You know what you guys have done at times? Probably like myself, we've subjected ourselves to bad authority. People in our lives that just tried to hey, I want you, you should try this, you should do that. And it's like something tells you, it's like a small whisper. It's like that Jiminy Cricket, right? He's trying to whisper in your ears and this is good. And like Pinocchio, that when Jiminy Cricket sat on his, you're like, oh, this is good. Boop. And you're like, no, this is a great idea. Boop. And it's like your subconscious, you're like, this is a terrible idea. And it goes back down. And then you learn the hard way. And the story of Pinocchio, man, the kid kept making bad decisions after bad decisions. But every person that he went through, kept, if you know the story of Pinocchio, you end up finding these people that were stealing kids to be like these laborers and stuff like, and all these kind of things. They were turning into like donkeys. I think that's how the story goes and whatnot. And every time Pinocchio just kept blindly following everybody. And he just kept lying and lying and lying. And he got to the point, man, when he was stuck in the whale. I believe that's how the story goes. He was stuck in the whale. And then finally, he kind of catches reality of himself. He's like, man, what am I doing here? He had bad shepherds, bad people that just lead you. I'm telling you, one of the biggest fears I could ever have as far as ministry-wise, is to lead people down the wrong road. I'm always constantly fearful. If you check my Wednesday night card, it is God give me, I'm always praying for wisdom in all matters of life and ministry. I don't want to make a bad decision. I'm the kind of person that I'm like, if I set my cup of coffee right here, like, is that going to bring the bad idea or something like that? I've seen too many mistakes I've made. You've probably heard me share the story one time when we were outside. This is one of the biggest, like, heart-wrenching moments, man, of like the ministry. Jason just got the brand new basketball court, and he specifically told us. He said, there's poles out there for the fence. He's like, you can't go out there to play tonight. He's like, don't go out there. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. We were inside. I don't even know. We were playing some game, whatever. And then we had a few youth in the house. And I'm like, hey, listen, if we're very careful, that was my first mistake. That was the first. Dale's laughing because he knows the youth, man. The fact that I said, if we're careful. If you've been around our youth, you know that you're banking on a whole lot to go well. Like, the stars have to align for our kids to be careful. Did I not just talk to you about these two, right? Or three, right? They could be my kids, all 6 of them. Put them together, there's no word called careful with any of them, all right? I'm always cringing. But I told our youth, I'm like, guys, if we're careful, we can go outside and play basketball. But listen, we'll just shoot around, all right? We're not going to run around or anything like that because we don't want to run into the poles and all that kind of stuff. So, we went outside and we dribbled around. We were probably out there maybe like 10 minutes. Obi was out there. I blame Obi. All right, but Obi was out there too. I think, were you at you for that? No? Dang, I'm going to blame you anyways, all right? So, we had our youth out there. And within about 10 minutes, Jason, he scared me because he was like coming out of the darkness and whatever. And he was right there. And I didn't expect him there. Now, I wasn't so scared that I was going to get in trouble by him like yelling at me. Because I'm kind of like used to it. So, I was kind of like at that point, I'm like, I've already, screwed up enough. What's another yelling? But I really wasn't thinking I was doing bad. I was very careful. I was methodical. I was like, you know what? I'll make sure none of the kids run. And we didn't. We didn't really run around. We just stayed in a certain area. There's a couple of kids that were kind of running around in circles. That's just because we have youth like that. And they're like a cat, I guess, run around. So we had a couple of kids like that. But for the most part, everyone was careful. But I'm telling you, I kid you not. As soon as like Jason saw us, I'm like, thought we did fine, and he looks at me. And now I've had him like giving me some like chewings before. I've had my fair share of chewings. And he looked at me, and I've never seen it, the face that he gave me for it. It wasn't a look of like, I'm going to like pulverize you, because I would have taken that over this. I was like, oh man, he's going to come down hard on me, and he's going to, whatever, and he's just going to whop on me the way, I would have taken that. But instead he looks at me and he goes, Victor! And then all of a sudden, like, I'm thinking like, okay, like knee-jerk reaction is going to be, he's going to scream at me at this point. Like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Why would you do this? I just told you not to. And he looks at me, he's like, I told, and his voice goes up, and Jason doesn't go that low. He's like, I told you not to do that. And he just kind of turns away. And all of a sudden, I'm like I was caught off guard by that. And I'm kind of just outside, and I'm feeling kind of like, And I look at all the boys, I'm like, guys, come on, let's go inside. Now, son, I go in his bedroom, and he just sat there on his bed. He was just literally sitting at the edge of the bed, and his head was down, whatever. And I don't think he expected me to go in there. I think he was trying to calm himself down. And I walked in there, and I didn't say anything. I just kind of like walked in there. About maybe 20, 30 seconds passed, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. And he looks at me. He's like, I'm just so disappointed in you. And I kid you not. It's not because it was Jason. It's because I realized I was spared mercy. Something so simple that I could have led people astray. When he said he was disappointed, I'm not kidding you. It was like the clouds opened up and I had the perfect illustration on what it's like to let God down. every Wednesday night, God, please lead me, give me wisdom in all matters of ministry, because I don't want to do stupid again. I've been a bad shepherd at times. I've been a bad shepherd to my wife. I've been a bad shepherd to my family. I've been at times a bad shepherd to the ministry. I've been a bad shepherd, and I don't want people to go astray. You want to talk about things that can go astray? Your sin can. Your shepherding can. I'm thankful I've not really been onto the aspect too much of subjecting myself, because I'm a skeptic, of nonsense. But what do you wonder? Are you shepherding wrong? Are you being shepherded wrong? If you're not careful, you're going to stand there before the leader, and you're going to have to say, so sorry. And you know what's the terrible part is it's not that God yells at you or punishes you. It's when he looks down from heaven and he speaks to you so clearly. He's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. I'm telling you, when Jason said that, it was like he ripped my insides out. Years back, I look at him, I'm like, I could have killed you for that, man. I'm like, if he would have taken his bedpost and cracked me upside the head, I would have taken that. When he looked at me, he's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. It was like I had nothing left in me to disappoint someone like that. You know what the biggest fear of mine? Hudson asked me not too long. He's like, Dad, what's your biggest fears? And I'm like, there's not really many things I'm scared of. One of the things I'm scared of is deep waters. I don't like deep waters. I go mostly because I can't swim. And to think that there's a bigger creature under me that could demolish me in 2 seconds, that's not really a deal. I can't outswim it, so that's not good. But that's a fear. But you know what my biggest fear is? It's the worst thing. It's the only thing that can really honestly get me going and it'll just eat at me, is letting someone down. I hate failing people. I hate it. I hate letting people down in a way that they just, it breaks them. I can live with the fact if it's hurt and then whatever, but I hate failing people. It absolutely rips me apart. You know what can cause someone to go astray? You're following your sin if you're not careful. Also, you're shepherding. Will you do a daily check? You know what's funny is that being a car owner, I was never taught much about owning a car. But the one thing that I remember Dale just told the story about to the lady at Lozon's. He was talking about Shaylee's oil one time. And it's my responsibility as the husband, whatever, to keep track of these things. But I remember one time he checked our dipstick because, Shaylee said something about her car. And Dale's like, well, he's like, did you see how much oil you have in there? And she's like, well, no. He's like, well, good. You wouldn't have saw it anyways. There was no oil. And the thing was bone dry. You didn't check it. You don't check that oil every once in a while like some people. Me. All right. I mean, I do every once in a while now. I'm better at it. I do at least once every 4 months or 5 months, 7, 10 months. I think I'm on 2 years now, something like that. But if you don't check that oil, what's going to happen to the engine? It'll seize. It's done for. If you find out you have no oil, you can't drive it like that. Why do we check our oils like that, but we don't check ourselves? Why don't you check yourself? Search me, O God. See if there's any wicked way in me. Why don't you check your family? I'm not good at this stuff, just so you know. I just know the things I'm bad at and I have to work on. What about a spiritual check? One of the biggest things that I've heard when we get our little, I guess this is just venting time. When we get tussies, whenever she asks me once in a while, and it's like the disappointment factor, the shepherding part, she's like, how come you don't check in more often with me about how I'm doing spiritually? You know what I do? Take it for granted that she's doing well. You do that with each other? I'm not good at this. I'm telling you, do you do it though? It don't matter if I'm good at it. Why don't you consider that? I'll check the oil in her car, but do you think I'm always willing to check on her? You do that with each other? What do you? There's a spiritual age when you can't do that. Spiritual checks with one another. Can you do that? Say, how you doing? Just messaging. Keeping in touch. Shepherding, man, if it's not there, it can cause someone to go astray. And look down at the bottom of that. It says in verse 6, it says, they have turned them away on mountains. They have gone from mountains to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. They don't even know where to lay anymore. You know what happens to a sheep that doesn't rest? It just conks, man. Your sheep need a place to stay. They need to. They'll stop anywhere if they're not. But they have to have a place to just kind of be able to rest, to recover. You get to the point where you're led astray by bad shepherding that you're just so restless. All right? As far as people that are restless in this church, I'm easily top 3. The other one has got to be in the top 3 is Poppy. All right? Me and it must be a Puerto Rican thing, I guess. I don't know. But we're just restless kind of guys. You ever seen someone that's restless before? They're just like, they're always on edge, all right? Jeremy's knees is the other one. That's top one. It's not Jeremy, it's just his knees are always. Jeremy's always moving his knees. If he's not moving his knees, he's always biting his face. He's always seems like he's arrested. And then you're like, Jeremy's like, what's up? You're like, my goodness, dude. It's like you caught him stealing from a cookie jar or something like that. You ever seen someone restless and they just don't know how to just like relax a little bit? You ever seen a little kid like run and bump their head like, freaking out? What do you tell them? Like, whoa, just relax. You just need to calm down a little bit. Rest is super important, but the shepherds have led them astray up to the mountains, over the hills, to grandma's house we go kind of thing, to the point where they have no resting place. No rest, man. You don't keep going on. You're stranded. You have nothing left into you. Maybe the ones that are close to you, maybe they're going astray because they don't have that shepherding. Maybe you're in charge of those kind of people. Check with your kids. Check with your wives, your husbands. Say, what can I do to help you rest? What can I do to help you a little bit? And then the last one, go to Psalm 119. Maybe it's because of sins. Maybe it's because of the shepherding. Psalm 119, look at verse 67. I think this right here is probably the most dominant reason, man. This has got to be one of the top reasons why someone would go, in my opinion, what I've seen. I've been coming to this church since 2000, I'd say about 4, 5, 6-ish, about that time. Didn't see much, but I've seen people in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely it. This is definitely one of the reasons. If you're going to go astray, out of, there's probably other reasons, but between the three of these, I think this is probably the one that will hit most of y'all. Psalm 119, look at verse 67. It says, before I was afflicted, I went astray. Before I was afflicted, I had gone astray. Wait, Victor, they're saying, so before I was afflicted, I've gone astray. So now I'm not going astray. You're right, because you've been afflicted. Look at the rest of that. And it says, but now have I kept thy word. You know what the problem is? It's not the fact that, being afflicted, because if you look at verse 71, look at that. It says in verse 71, same chapter, or same psalm, it says, it is good for me that I have been what? Afflicted. It's good for you that I might learn thy statutes. The most layman way I can put that is this. It's like when training a dog, and the dog, poo-poos or pee-pees on the carpet. You don't just say, oh, Buster, that was so good of you. But, try not to do that again, okay? Like, you just, let's have a good, relationship about this. It's like, no, bad, just like that. Or however you want to say bad, you do what you got to do. And then the dog looks at you like, oh, that's a terrible idea. I probably shouldn't do that again. And then also what happens, the dog kind of learn from its lesson. But if you're the kind of, parenting, or if you're kind of the dog owning or cow owning, it's probably cats, because cats are just like jerks, whatever. And this is Mr. Popo. He's a good guy. Fernando, whatever you want to call him. He's a good cat. I love that cat. But, you can't just tell them, oh, you know what, you tried harder, you tried, let's do a better next time kind of thing. It's like, no, you did bad. Like, don't do that kind of thing. It is good for you to be afflicted, because then you learn the statutes. You kind of learn the law, right? I told the kids at youth group, I gave the illustration of driving. I said, if you're driving, 70 miles per hour and at 55, you don't have to know. Don't have to know a blessed thing about the speed limit. You know as soon as you get pulled over, you're like, that's a bad idea. Now, some of you don't ever learn, and that's why the tickets keep piling up, okay? Now, I'm not one of those. Some of y'all are laughing like, now he knows, all right? And some of y'all looked at each other, so I see how that works out. Now I know who not to chaperone me, okay? I'm not a fast driver, all right? I'm going to probably get in trouble for this one, but a certain father-in-law in this room, I'm not naming names. He may be, mine, maybe somebody's, mostly probably mine. But we were trying out the new van. I'm telling you, that thing goes fast. We were on the Brandonsville Road. And within about 2 seconds, literally about 2 seconds, when I was driving on the way there, I was like, this is nice, I'm cruising, had my ear like, like kind of thing. I was like, this is so great. Like, I had the sunroof. I'm like, Dale, this is so nice of myself. And then also, it was Dale's turn to drive back. That was a bad idea. That's like telling the youth group, if we're safe about this, like, that was a bad idea. I let Dale get in the car, and within about 2 to 4 seconds, I'm not kidding, he had that thing it felt like, I'm like, whoa, Dale, you're going fast. You must be going like, 75 or 80. Like, he was booming. It's like redlining. And he's like, hey, your van has a red line safety feature. I don't want to know that. Why do I want to know that for? Like, I'm never going to, what do you think? I'm just going to run away from the cops or something? Like, I don't need to know that kind of stuff. I'm like, Dale, man, you must be going like 75 or 80. He's like, huh. When he went, I knew at that point it was far worse than that. I'm like, how fast are you going? He's like, I think we got up to about like 97 on that. I'm like, that's the fastest I've ever been in a vehicle before. He's like, he looks at me and goes, really? I should say he's gone faster than that. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I felt like melting. I'm like, Dale. And I'm like, you gotta slow down, man. Like, I've never gone that fast in a vehicle. It's because of the law of, seeing pictures of people that drive that fast. I've seen NASCAR races, man. You see what happens to those cars? They go like this, and boom, they're all over the place, and people are, I'm traumatized by that. That doesn't happen to me. I don't need to know how fast those things go. That's not going to be good for my blood pressure, but no, Dale like to test the waters on that. There's good times that we have, man. There's things that, we kind of learn the laws. You can go fast and you're going to get pulled over by the cop and you're going to say, I didn't mean to speed. Now, they might let you go. And I'm so thankful when God lets me go sometimes. There's things I've made mistakes at, man. There's stupid decisions I've done. There's things I've said. There's places I've went. And I've had God's mercies. And that's great. Thankful for the Lord's mercies. But it's not always a given. You don't just get to speed and tell the cop, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speed. He might let you go, but he might say, tough, man, you're paying the fine. You're going to be in trouble for this kind of stuff. He says, it's good for me to be afflicted because then I learn your statutes. Then I learn the law. Especially if you get pulled over multiple times, they see you got speeding tickets, it's probably less likely you're going to get out of the third one, the fourth one. Some of you guys are racking them all up like it's not that big of a deal. And you might even treat your spiritual life the same way. It's not that big of a deal. 1 John 1:9. I'll cling for, forgiveness and stuff like that. Don't milk that, man. It's the reason maybe because of sins, it may be because of the shepherding, but it may be because of this. It's not afflicted that hurts you or makes you go astray. It's comfort. It's comfort that leads you to go astray. He says, before I was afflicted. What's the opposite of afflicted? It's peace. It's comfort. You know what I call it? Is the snuggleness. I guess to keep the S's. Sin, shepherding, and being snuggled. Snuggle. Now, for me, not much of a snuggler. I wasn't like loved on, that kind of. My boys are the opposite. If they have any opportunity to come between me and the wife to try to sneak in there, they're all about it. Especially that little blonde-haired, blue-eyed Felix. I'm Felix. Mommy loves me. It's like, why do you have to be so cute? And he is. He's adorable. He's a little turd, but he's adorable. And he's like, Mom, oh, it drives me nuts. He's like, I'll mess with them. And I'm like, Mommy, help me. And she's like, no, don't hit my baby. I'm like, ha, 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 ha. I got my eyes on you. I'll play. I'm like, oh, ha, 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 wait. And then Shane's like, okay, you boys have fun. I'm like, ha, ha. You, and like, whop on him. I'm like, don't you take her love from me. That's my woman right there, We get that snuggling. He loves snuggling with her. He's one of the only ones that love to. He loves to. But all three of my kids will snuggle with her. When Ariana does it, it's absolutely the most sweetest thing. She'll kind of go up to Shaylee and she'll kind of do like this. She's in that age, right? I don't know what that age is, but I just know it's an age. And I guess it's weird for girls. Girls are weird at that age, man. She's kind of like, I want to love my mom, but I'm just too cool for that. All right. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, she's kind of, it's adorable the way she does it. Hudson, it's on his own terms. He's kind of like his father, where, I don't like to be really touched per se. I'm just not that kind of person. I love to comfort people, and if a hug would do it for you, I'm all about that. But for me, I don't require it. I don't need touch. I'm just not that person. My kids I love when my wife hugs on them. I love that snuggleness. You know what's going to happen, though? There's going to come a point in every one of our lives when we have to break free from that. We're not going to always have that there. The Bible says, when it's Psalm 23, we have that whole shepherding concept. And it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yea, though, what's the word? I walk. Now, every shepherd has his eyes on the flock. But he's not right there to take care of you. He can't do that. You as sheep, I've got to learn, you can't be snuggled all the time. It's good sometimes that you are not there. But you know that snuggleness will do? It'll hurt you. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. We're almost done. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Snuggleness ruined Israel. It ruined them. Your sin can lead you astray. A shepherd can lead you astray. And snugness can lead you astray. What did I say? Yeah, Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10, it says, "When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee." And that's true. We always praise him in the good times. As we've heard constantly, like at least the last couple of months, can you just thank him for the nothings, right? Can you just do that? Can you thank him for nothings? You know, it doesn't have to be the good times, but you know what? Thank him for, hey, well, I didn't get this good thing happen to me. Yeah, but you didn't have this happening. You know, again, well, the glass is, it's empty. It's not even half full. It's empty. At least you got a cup. There's some people that don't. But we'll thank him when all the good things are going. Can you thank him when they aren't always going the way that you want? But he says it. He's right when he wrote it here. It says, "When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he had given thee." Verse 11, it says, "Beware." That's good right there. Beware. You see that growing up on like those haunted houses like that. Beware. Like, you're supposed to take notice at that point. That's something you don't just ignore. "Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, lest when thou hast eaten and art full," which, by the way, when you eat and you're full, that's when you praise him, at that time, "and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thy house has multiplied." You got it, man. You got everything you need. I'm not talking about you're living like the financial highs, that your physical health is at its peak, but you've got everything that you possibly can need. You have no room for complaints at this point. He's saying when all that stuff's going on, beware. At that point, this is when the next part happens. It says here, "Then thine heart be lifted up, and now forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who led thee through the great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint, who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee to do thee good at thy latter end. And thou say in thine heart, My power and the might of mine hand had gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers as it is this day." He told the Israelites, he's like, I took care of you when you were in the wilderness. And some of you have been in the wilderness. Some of you are still going through the wilderness. You can recall it because it's right there. But some of you guys can look back in the wilderness moments and you've seen how God has brought you through. We've heard that song, "You are my shepherd in the wilderness, whom shall I fear?" You hear that kind of stuff. You remember that. You remember the times when he says you were thirsty, and he's like, "And I gave you water." And it's not that he just gave you water. He did it in a way only he could have done. When the water flowed out of the rock. He did it in a miraculous way. You ever been there before? You ever been there for 79 days and you find out that when all people are like, there's just no chance, and a miracle comes your way? You ever been there? You ever been there to the point when the doctors tell you that your son, there's no way he's going to need medicine for the rest of his life, and then God miraculously brings down this wicked disease? You ever been there where God takes care of your youngin when he says that this is the disease and she has no chance at a normal life? You've been there in the wilderness. You've been so thirsty. I need a cup. And he's like, "Bro, I'll bring the water out for you." You're so hungry that you're like, I'm so malnourished. You're so spiritually hungry that you're like, I need something to eat. And he's like, I'm providing it for you. He takes care of it all. You ever been in that spot and then all of a sudden you're like, God who? And before you tell me no, let's be mindful that that's probably going to be a lie. That's either you now or it's been you. But if it's not either, for the sake of, that will be you. Because you know what's happening right now? You have the good life. But there will come a time when God will prove you. Like he said, he's like, I proved you. I'm about to prove you guys. See where you're at. And that will come. And I'm telling you, your reaction will be, but mine power, but mine hands have done all this. You better be careful taking the honor and the glory from your God and Heavenly Father in heaven. Because I heard Brother Chris tell me all the time, he corrects himself all the time. I don't know why he does. Probably because maybe that's something he tells him. He's like, I don't know, he says, he's like, our business. He corrects himself. He's like, God's the Lord's business. He's always correcting himself. I don't know if he just forgets the word or if he just like whatever it is, but he's always correcting himself all the time. You know what happens sometimes? We're like, you know what? It's mine, or I did this one, or I have this one. And you know how you do that? By not giving God all that he deserves. It says here, he's like, I took care of you in so many ways. You know what happens when good times are rolling, man? Everything's, I can think of countless, 70s and 60s songs and 80s songs when it's all about goodness and happiness and all these other subliminal messages, but there's all these good things and whatever, and they're just living a happy life. But I'm telling you, you know what? At that era, that's when things really started to shift. At those time frames, man, it was really, we started seeing that, you know what? That's when God started getting out of the schools and stuff like that, and that was the downhill slope because people were at a prosperous life, man. Everything was going golden. When you are at a part where you are so snugged up with life, you got everything. You don't realize, you think that you're snuggling with God. You're snuggling with the wrong things, man. You're right up on there, and you know what? The worst thing, you see it all the times as for me, growing up, like we weren't allowed to have the opposite gender in our household. This just was not a thing. I saw my mom one time catch my sister had a boy. They were snugged under the blankets in my house. I kid you not, all I could do was get the popcorn, and I sat there, I'm like, in the red corner. My mom's like, Chris! Like she was ready to kill, and I'm like, sit there, you're like, this is going to be an interesting fight. We were not allowed to snuggle up with the opposite gender are you out of your mind? There's not a chance. Oh, that was fighting. I don't know how it works out. We snuggle up with the things of this world. What are you doing under the blankets with that one right there? Not literally. I'm talking about the things of this, the sin, the stupidity, the nonsense. What are you doing snuggling up with that? Because you had it so good, you think you're entitled to everything. You don't want this world. Love not the world, none of the things in the world. For all that is in the world is the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. All those things, that's all that is in this world. What do you want all this junk for? If you're not careful, your sin will get you, the shepherd will get you, or the snugness will get you. Let's close out back at Psalm 119, 176. We'll close there. Maybe I had a couple other points I was going to labor, but we'll probably maybe pick that up next week or something. But in Psalm 119, 176, sheep that go astray, man, it's an awful thing to think that a sheep would possibly go astray. It says, I have gone astray like a lost sheep. You know what's the most ironic part about that next word? It says, seek thy servant. You know, in all the time, most times, especially with Israel, you'll never find where it says, seek thy servant. You hardly ever find an instance. In most instances, especially in the Old Testament, you know what Israel is always told to do? Seek the Lord. Find God. Seek the Lord. All the time it's telling them to seek God, to seek God, to seek God. The person that's writing this here, they're like, I've gone so far astray, I don't even know how to find my way back. You've been there before? You're like, I don't even know if I can make it out of this one. Can I tell you, you don't always have to, because God will find you. He has no problem. Why don't you cry out to him? I'm reminded on the New Year's Eve service, Brother Ryan one time was sitting in a room just listening to some junk music. And out of nowhere, God sought him out. He spoke to him. He got but what happened was Ryan had this premonition, if you will. He's like, you know what? It's a really bad thing that I'm here right now. I'm like a lost sheep that has gone astray. And at that point, he just cried out to God, and God spoke to him about a song, and God was able to meet him there. Amen. It says here, he says, seek thy servant. seek me out. I wonder how many people here are willing to do like the first verse where it says, look at that first verse again. I don't know, was it verse 169? Let my cry come near before thee, O Lord. You know what the most ironic thing is? I'm kind of switching animals, but you think about a baby bird, right? When a baby bird falls out of the nest, it almost it starts doing like meep, meep, like that kind of thing. It just starts like squawking, stuff like that, until the mama bird sees it. But the mama bird's always up there looking. It knows where it's at. You know, the person, I'm like a lost sheep that is gone astray. I don't even know how, I seek thy servant. I can't even be found at this point. Can you find me? I'm so lost. The next part that I'll do maybe I'll do it tonight. Maybe I'll do that tonight. The next part, look, see the last part in there? It says here, for I do not forget thy commandments. Seek thy servant, for I do not forget thy commandments. You say, why would that be a thing about the commandments? I'll give you this little taste verse. Don't turn there. But the Bible talks about in Psalm 119, verse 105. Does anybody know that off the top of their head? Thy word. It says, thy word is the lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy words, right? That commandments. He says here, for I do not forget thy commandments. He's like, seek me. You know what's funny is that when things get lost and you're in a stray sheep, you have something right here that can show you where to go. I'm reminded of verses in this book that tell me the path that I need to go on. And he's like, I've marked it out for you on how to get back to me. I've shown you the direction on how to find me. But this person here that's gone astray, he's like, seek thy servant. For now, again, for the sake of, I'll do it another time. For now, I'll ask you, can you at least cry unto him? Can you at least cry? Some of you have gone astray in life before, and you've gone so far back, and you try to find your way back. I'm thankful for that. But can you at least cry unto the Lord as we stand at our feet? I'm reminded that song, if it matters to you, it matters to the Master. Can you ask the Lord where you are right now? Say, God, I need to cry unto you. Don't let that, be the point where that's like, the last-ditch effort. We wait until we're at the point where we're like, you know what? I've peaked. I have nothing left anymore. I'm going to cry unto him. Speak out to him. Let him know. Say, I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek thy servant. It's so weird. You see every other time when the person in the Bible, those verses, it's always saying for us to seek the Lord. This person is like, God, can you find me? Can you find me? I'm going to ask if Brother Chris, nice to have you back from vacation. If you close out in prayer, brother.